start in just a minute or two, give everybody a minute or two to get here. We'll be on our way. So we encourage people, if you want to see better, move towards the front a little bit. We have some slides to show you, and perhaps see them a little better if you move to the front if you'd like to.
All right. Good evening, folks. Can everybody hear me okay? Thumbs up? Okay. Well, welcome. If you're here for the public information meeting on the east-west section of the Old Farms Road project, you're in the right place. So, welcome. A couple of quick introductions here before we get started. My name's Brandon Robertson. I'm the town manager of Avon. We have Larry Burrill, the town engineer. I also see a couple of council members in the audience. We have Dan Paulhamus, chair of the council. We have Anthony Weber. We have Margaret Bratton. And I think that's it for council right now, although others may come in. And I also want to introduce the design team from WMC Consulting Engineers. We have Steve McConnell, who is going to jump in when I'm done with introductions and give the presentations. We have Keegan Elder. We have Bob Bernesci. And we also have Jay Costello, the president of WMC. So again, welcome. Glad we have such a good turnout here tonight. Kind of hard to believe when you're looking back at the calendar that it's been, about 5 months now since we last meant to talk about this project. It was actually back on January 3rd. And since that time, the design team has been diligently working on a couple of different options that they're excited to present to you tonight. As they've worked through these options, we've basically had three basic criteria in mind. I think it's fair to say we've had three criteria. One is that both of these proposed options have been designed to meet the purpose and need of the project. Number two, both of the options meet the underlying engineering and design criteria that applies, and the requirements set forth by the various regulatory bodies that eventually will have to approve permitting for these projects. And then, of course, last but not least, is number three, not only the public input that we received from the public back on January 3rd, but it's been great to see that since then, we've received a number of phone calls and emails and other communications, particularly to the engineering department, that we've been able to incorporate into these options. So we're excited to show them to you. Thanks again for being here tonight. And with that, I'm going to hand it off to Steve.
Thank you. Okay. We're going to start off. I'm Steve McDonald again. We've met our project team. I'm going to give you a brief introduction of some things, some ground rules for how we're going to try to run the meeting to keep it orderly and we can get through this efficiently. And then Bob Bernesci, our chief engineer, is going to go through the design process and look at the couple of alternatives that we've looked at in some detail. So the first step is when we get to the questions, and we're going to try to ask people to hold off on the questions until to the very end if you can, and then we'll have plenty of time. We'll stay here as long as need be. We don't have a deadline like we did last time, so we can stay here as long as you need to answer questions. We'd like to have you hold those to the end if possible, and then if you do have a question, which I'm sure you'll have some, then we'd like you to come up. We're going to have a microphone right behind Bob that we need you to come up, tell us your name, your address, and then your question. We'll try to limit it to about 3 minutes per person, so we can get through everybody tonight. Would be very helpful. We want to hear from everybody, so that's what we're here for. We're here for gathering input on the project. We are in what they call the preliminary engineering stage of the project. We haven't really designed per se everything or anything really. It's really preliminary layout, looking at the alternatives. So again, we're here to gain input from the public, and then we can modify the project as needed accordingly. So again, we don't, comment cards are actually, we did those last time. That didn't seem to work out very well. So if people have comments and they don't care to come to the microphone, there'll be email addresses in one of the slides at the very end, but you can always get Larry's email, the town engineer, and he will respond to your questions after the meeting if you so desire to do that. So, move on. So, these are some of the comments that we received. We kind of tried to cull them down to a few very, very important ones. And I'm not going to go through these in detail because what we're going to do is we're going to go through our presentation of the alternatives and address these as we go through the presentation. But reduce the disturbance footprint to save more trees is an obvious question that people had. We all know the north-south route, what that looks like, and we're trying to avoid that and make it preserve the rural character of the roadway. So in doing so, we're trying to incorporate low-impact design, additional signage, and measures to slow traffic, and provide more advanced notice and to incorporate public input. Now, we've announced this meeting, I believe Larry did at least a month ago, and I think it's been in several places, so the turnout's pretty good tonight, so we assume people were aware of the meeting. So, okay, I'm going to have Bob take over at this point. This is an initial comparison summary of a couple of the options. What I'd like to just quickly explain, there's existing conditions in one column, alternate 1 and alternate 3. There was an alternate 2, but it's kind of a sub-alternate of alternate 3, and it really isn't any different than alternate 3. So the ones we're going to really look at are alternate 1 and alternate 3. So I guess with that, Bob will take over. Now it's working.
Check. Gotta hold the button.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Green light. Mic on.
There we go. All right. Sorry about that. Okay. So once again, Bob Barneschi with WMC Consulting Engineers. The chart in front of you is just to give you folks kind of a glimpse of all the different parameters that we as engineers have to attempt to follow when we're designing this roadway. And I do just kind of want to explain the alternate, the difference, again, to reiterate what Steve mentioned, the difference between alternate 1 and 3 was a different intersection layout that we provided with alternate 2. There's no roadway deviation and any other changes in the alignment. So alternate 3 was just created to better match with the north-south section that's being created to limit the overlap of construction that was going to occur at that intersection. So as you can see, there's a multitude of different parameters that we're using, and for this project, we're really trying to focus on the main parameter is our 85th percentile speed, which we did traffic counts earlier this year, and we've noted that traffic is traveling at a rate of just over 40 miles an hour. So the right-hand column is the criteria that's listed in the Connecticut DOT Highway Design Manual, and that's if we had met all those parameters, we would have to follow all those specific guidelines in terms of lane widths, radiuses, sight lines. So what we've done as a team collectively is we said we're looking for a happy medium. So we selected a 35 mile an hour design speed. That does not mean that the speed limit is proposed to be changed on the road. It's still going to be posted 25 miles an hour. Okay, but all we're going to do is increase the safety of the roadway by designing it to a 35 mile an hour design standard. In order to do that, the orange color is just indicating that we need to apply for a design exception, and the design exception is the 40 miles an hour. So we're just kind of reducing the standard of the roads. And again, in an effort to reduce some of the impact and disturbance and clearing limits of the roadway, since the terrain is somewhat challenging on left and right of the road. So for this design, we're really just kind of focused on narrowing the lane widths. So alternate 1 We proposed a 26-foot wide road with 11-foot lanes, 2-foot shoulders. Currently, you have no shoulders, and your road kind of meanders from next down to 19 feet up to 24 feet. So our first design of this was a 26-foot wide road, increase the sight lines, so you were able to achieve sight lines for 35 miles an hour. Right now, you're not even able to see at a sight line distance that's set for 25 miles an hour. So again, we're trying to improve the safety of the roadway. Another design standard is the K, we call them the K values, of which dictate the length of curves and geometry of the road, which is the vertical crest and sag curves that you drive up and down on the roads. And those K values help guide us to give you guys, the users of the roadway, the adequate sight lines for a given design speed. So again, we don't need to go into each one into detail, but the difference between alternate 1 was we had a 26-foot wide road. We heard your input from the first meeting, and so we've narrowed it down to alternate 3. We've narrowed it down to 10-foot lanes. We're going to maintain the 2-foot shoulders, so we're going to have a 20-foot wide road consistent. And what we're going to do is increase what we call the clear zones on the side of the road. So that's going to give you your horizontal sight lines when you're coming around curves. Again, so just going to give you a brief overview of the project limits. The project is going to start at the Heritage Trail. The first 1,200 feet or so on the southbound side, we're going to be proposing to add the 10-foot wide paved multi-use trail. Approximately 600 feet away from the intersection is where we're going to reconstruct that sharp curve on Thompson Road. So we're going to lengthen that curve, provide you better sight lines. The trail will continue on the south side of that road, and then we'll tee up with the new section of the north-south for Old Farms. That will be a 3-way stop-controlled intersection. I'll show you more detail later in the slides. And then again, as we continue eastbound, 24-foot wide road, all the way down to about 100 feet west of Tillotson. And then from Tillotson to Fisher Meadows, again, just on the southbound side of the road, we're going to be doing a 10-foot wide multi-use trail. Okay, so this is just kind of a general, typical cross-section, just to give everybody an idea of the impact variance or differences between the two alternatives. The green cross-section, first of all, the existing grade is kind of the dash line in the middle. So this is the approximate existing road limits. And in our first proposal, we attempted to do a combination of low-impact development design, which means the use of limited amounts of curbing on the road, utilizing sheet flow, utilizing infiltration through grass-lined swales to help renovate and clean stormwater. We tried to limit the amount of catch basins involved in the road. We're still going to need outfall locations. But again, the idea was to create as much green space as we could. But in order to do that, at times we needed to cut and chase the slopes up since they were so steep. A conventional construction slope that we would consider stabilized, we usually call it, for every 2 feet horizontal, we'd go 1 foot vertical. So a 2-to-1 slope is what these would depict. This is a cut on the left-hand side of the road if you're traveling eastbound, and a fill on the right side. We didn't always do a fill on the right side for alternative 1 just because of the environmental impacts. We do have wetlands on the southern side of the road, so in some areas we may have slopes, in some areas we did put the wall in just to reduce wetland impacts. In alternative 3, again, we took into consideration the feedback that we received in the first meeting, And we seem to be consensus to limit the disturbance corridor. So that's kind of what this cross-section is attempting to show, is your disturbance corridor. So in alternate 1, it really varied from about 60 feet to the largest was 95, and don't let the 95 scare, it was only happened in like 1 or 2 small cases, so we weren't like clearing 100 foot, the entire 3,500 feet of roadway. But I'll just giving you a range to put things in perspective. In the updated alternate 3, we tried to narrow that corridor down to between 60 and 70 feet. Oh, yeah, good point. Thanks, Jay. So again, the differences between, another difference between these 2 alternates was, again, we tried to incorporate LID, low impact development measures, meaning sheet flow off the roadway where we did not have curbing, mostly on the northern side of the road where we were going to attempt to swale most of the stormwater. In alternate 3, in order to condense the disturbance corridor, we had to put curbing on both sides. So we essentially excluded the LID measures in alternate 3 in an effort to narrow the disturbance corridor, which just means that all the stormwater would be captured along the gutter with more catch basins.
Just to point out to Bob, for the public that may not be used to looking at plans, in the magenta color, the 2 on the left and right, those are retaining walls, if you're aware of that. But that was required to minimize the impact. We had to have retaining walls on the uphill and the downhill side in order to shrink down the footprint of the project, just to make sure everybody knows what those are.
So here I'm just going to run you through a little bit larger scale plans of the disturbance limits and our proposal. The dark blue is water, light blue is wetlands that we had soil scientists out there locate. The 2 different green colors, the lighter green is going to be the impact corridor for alternate 3, which is the reduced version, and the darker green impact is alternate 1, which just incorporated more grading. So alternate 1 was more grading, alternate 3 is less grading, more retaining walls.
What are we looking at here? What intersection?
So this is Thompson Road. This is Old Farms Road, the existing intersection in red. It's tough to see, but the red outline is the existing roadway. So the existing intersection is actually over here. And so we're realigning it to this side. So we're
44 is at the top.
yeah. So the north-south section, the new rotary is up north. Okay, so
We'll be heading down towards Tillotson Road
yep.
as he goes through these plans.
So everything will be traveling from west to east. So the farming to the Heritage Trail is over on this side. And here's, I'm basically just kind of showing where we're starting the full depth roadway reconstruction to flatten out this curve. So this is the existing curve all the way out here, which is a limited sight line. And so we're going to improve that. So the orange color is the proposed roadway. The gray color is the trail along the southern side of the road. Okay, so this is just east of the intersection, and here's the first bridge. In this area, the existing brook actually flows north and then pretty much takes a 90-degree turn and then snakes around. So as part of the proposal, our new bridge going in here is going to realign the stream channel for better hydraulics and allow that water to flow smoothly without creating an erosive velocities going around this bank. Again, so the existing roadway in this area is in the light green, so we're just going to restore that. We're just going to remove the pavement, restore that with grassy conditions, likely put new plantings toward the end of the project. We don't have those developed at this stage, but those will be part of the overall plan. Retaining walls mainly along the southern side. I can attempt to zoom in, but pretty much wherever you see a dark green patch area, that was conventional grading for alternate 1. And we eliminated that grading in lieu of a retaining wall in alternate 3. So as we go down east, again, this is the second bridge. That'll be replaced in the same location. The flows there will be the same. The existing will be wetland impacts in both areas. As we, again, on the western bridge, as we remove the stream channel, so we'll regrade that, seed that with a wildflower seed mixture. That's no maintenance, and that will naturalize itself. On the second bridge to the east, again, retaining walls to the south to limit the wetland impacts as we go to the east. Okay, so east of the bridge is where the road really starts to snake, and where we noted limited sight lines. Tried to take just photos as you come around these corners, and so the concept here is to extend out the shelf from the curbing so that you're able to see across instead of having the steep slope come right up next to the road. You would have what we call a snow shelf in that area, and that would extend 10 to 12 feet to the north, and that'll allow all vehicles to see around those blind corners. Again, retaining walls, a couple of retaining walls on the northern side here, where we would retain this soil, cut this back, put our retaining walls in. Okay, so here's our approach down to the school and field entrance toward Tillotson. This is kind of a straightaway, but does start to curve around here with a slightly limited sight line coming around the corner across from the driveway. So as part of that, when we cut back the slope to install the trail, we'll be putting a retaining wall a couple hundred feet, and it'll end right before Tillotson. And then from Tillotson down toward Fisher Meadows, again, the trail will just be on the southern side. I do want to just reiterate that when back at the Thompson and Old Farms intersection, this is, again, going to be a three-way stop with pedestrian crossing on the western side, and then one just on the eastern side. Okay, and so this here we're just going to sort of highlight our what we consider pros and cons of the two alternates. So in alternate one, we kind of considered a negative that we have wider lanes, more additional impervious area, greater road width, disturbance, overall impervious area. The good thing about alternate one is we're able to incorporate more of the LID measures into the design, where we're able to incorporate more grassy lined swales to renovate stormwater. We had less retaining walls. But with that, we had more upland review area disturbance. The wetland impacts were almost a wash. It was just slightly less when we get to alternate 3. And would like to point out that the total land disturbance in alternate 1, that we were able to reduce it by an acre and a quarter, 1.35 acres. We were able to reduce the overall land clearing and disturbance for the overall project. So in our alternate 3 proposal, again, 24-foot wide road, the 60 to 70-foot disturbance corridor, which is that cross-section that I showed. The impervious areas were slightly limited. and we weren't able to incorporate LID. However, that doesn't mean we're not going to treat the stormwater. We will be proposing what we call hydrodynamic stormwater separators. Those collect stormwater, help settle out some of the pollutants, some of the sediments before discharging to the wetlands and watercourses. And then those are usually cleaned on the annual or biannual basis. Slightly less upland review area, and again, total disturbance is down to about 7.5 acres. So what we have prepared for you is sort of a drive-through video simulation going from west to east, starting at the Old Farm, Thompson Road intersection. And we just kind of want to let you know that this is a conceptual simulation. So it's not everything is going to be a completely accurate representation, but it'll give you a good feeling, a good feel as we navigate down this road. So let me pull this up for you. Okay, so this is your three-way stop sign. It's a three-way stop controlled intersection with your pedestrian crossings on, give you your bearings. Old Farms Road, your north-south section goes left on the screen. So the retaining walls that we're proposing would be a brownstone color similar to what was constructed on the bridge on Old Farms Road. It's a similar color. And then we'd have to put protective fencing on certain walls over a certain height. And so I'll just kind of start the drive through. So we have a 4-foot wide grass median in between the roadway and the multi-use trail. There's pretty good sight lines through most of the project, and here's one of the first bridges. Again, here normally this bridge the water would snake around this way, come around, and then head north. But in this case, we're just going to straighten out this brook. So as we get kind of in between the first and second bridges, the grade does climb on the right-hand side, so that is the reason for the retaining wall on the right. Otherwise, the disturbance, like in alternate one, would show that grading up the slope. And I can go back through if anyone wants to see a particular area after our presentation is done. But here's as we approach the second bridge, we're not going to be altering the stream channel. That will continue to flow as it does. And here's where we begin the kind of the S snake curve with the limited sight lines. So most of this stretch, as we continue on, we'll have retaining walls on the left-hand side where we're cutting into the slope, and the retaining wall, there is a retaining wall along the right-hand side, and that is the fill area where we're putting the retaining walls to limit the wetland impacts and slope limits to the south. Okay, so here's one of the sharper curves as we come around here, and the reason for the brown railing, which is going to be a timber guide rail, is just the height of these retaining walls. It does approach a height over 15 feet, and since we have vehicles coming around this curve, it was just an added measure of protection, just to keep everybody safe in the event of adverse conditions. And this rail does not continue the entire length, it's just for this curve. And here's the last curve before the approach down to Tillotson. And in this scenario, sorry, the retaining walls are pulled back to give you your sight lines as if you were actually driving to the west. So in this area, some of these slopes are actually sort of gentle, and they don't always need any protective fencing on the right-hand side of the trail. However, it will be there most of the length. We are proposing sort of a black ornamental fence as opposed to, I think we'd previously shown chain link fence. Okay, here's just a different example of this. We consider this as just a split rail wood timber fence railing along the southern side of the trail just to protect that slope that drops off. And here's your last retaining wall on the right before we get to Tillotson. And then at Tillotson, we'll be adding the crosswalk, and the trail will the roadway reconstruction limits actually terminate just before Tillotson, but the trail would just continue down the southern side to Fisher Meadows. How do I get to the next one, Keegan? There we go. And then all the public information is listed up here. If everyone can either take a picture of it with their phones, you can write down, you can email us or Larry at the town. With specific questions and comments that you may or may not get addressed tonight. Hopefully we are able to answer everything, but if anything does come to mind later on, feel free to email any of us or the town at any time. And with that, I guess we can open up to public discussion. Yes, sir. I can actually just leave it on that one for now, unless anybody needs to see something particular. Oh, yes. So, yeah, we did not simulate both alternatives. We felt that the direction of the project was kind of going toward the third alternative, so this is the simulation that we've created. But we do show the disturbance limits on the plans. Again, those are going to be the darker green. I can go back to any plan that you wish to see. This is going to have the greater disturbance limits with less retaining walls. But if we can have anyone who does have comments come up, use the microphone, state their name.
We mentioned the ground rules. This is going to be posted on, the whole slideshow and video will be on the town's website tomorrow. So anybody that wants to look at it in more detail, they'll be able to do so tomorrow morning sometime. Okay, so no particular order. Whoever's ready for a question, they can come up to Bob, grab the microphone, tell us who you are and your address, and we'll try to answer questions.
Yes, it is.
My name is Carmen Robinette. I'm from 18 Byron Drive in Avon. And I think I just kind of want to go back to like basic principles. Who in the town is defining what the objectives of the projects are that the engineering team is working on? Because I'm very disturbed by the discussion of safety and the idea that having greater sight lines, greater road curvature radii is somehow promoting safer driving, because it is not going to do that. I think most people know that. When roads are narrower, when they have tighter curves, when there is less sight line distance, people will naturally drive slower. So right now we have a road that encourages people, just by the nature of its design, to drive more carefully. By increasing sight lines and adding greater road curvatures, people will be able to drive faster, and they will. So I commute almost daily on this road, and then I get on to Waterville, and then I hop on to Talcott Notch to continue my commute to Farmington. When I get onto Talcott Notch Road, this posted speed limit is 25 miles per hour. How fast do people drive? I drive 10 miles over. I drive 35. The reason being, if I don't, I'm going to have a train of 10 cars behind me very quickly. So I at least speed a little bit so people don't pass me on the double yellow lined road. That's what I do. So I drive 35 when there are people behind me, 32 when there are not. And I think that the community on that road appreciates that. So by increasing sight lines, straightening the road, we're going to create conditions for people to just drive faster anyways. The road will not be effectively patrolled. There will be no enforcement, just like there isn't on 10 and many other roads in the community. So I pretty much didn't see anything here that made me think this is something I would enjoy driving on. I don't see any natural character by putting this multi-use trail next to it. I'm sure, maybe some people will use it. But you're broadening a road that's in a beautiful area that is soon to be extinct in Avon. It's probably the last nice, beautiful road that people can drive on. And you're going to take all the trees away in the shade. And I don't understand what's driving this. Like, why not just leave it as it is? I would like to be in that stage of the planning. Why not leave it as it is? What are the environmental concerns for how it is? What are the safety concerns for how it is? Because it would be a lot cheaper, I would think, to just make sure that the edges of the road are paved, that the potholes are filled, any hazardous trees are removed. I just don't understand what's driving this entire thing. Who in the town is wanting this project now? I have other questions, but I've done my 3 minutes, and I'll circle back if other people don't hit them.
Okay, I'll try to address some of those questions. There was quite a bit in there, but again, my name is Jay Casello at WMC Consulting Engineers. As Bob alluded to early on in one of the early slides, and I think Brandon also alluded to, there's very specific design criteria we have to meet. Okay, there is a large volume of traffic that uses the road, and regardless of perceptions, speeds were measured on the road. People are driving in excess of 40 miles per hour, which is extremely dangerous with the existing curvature and the lack of sightline that exists there now. As discussed at the last meeting by the police chief, there's a significant number of traffic accidents that occur there, and that's what's driving the design criteria. Again, let me finish, okay, if you please. I think tonight you've had your chance to ask questions. We'll try to respond. I think we should let other people also ask questions, and then when they're done, then you'll probably have a chance to come back up and ask questions further. Okay, so it's not.
Because I do feel that you're referring to things for which you're not presenting data. Traffic accident speeds, how many cars you guys do.
Again, we presented this.
Without saying that there's actual data and showing it to us on a slide for what you hope to accomplish. Same issue as for the last meeting happening this time.
The information was presented by the chief of police at the last meeting. The information was posted on the website, and it's still available. So again, the volumes of traffic on the road are in excess of 2,000 vehicles per day. The traffic, the highway design manual requirements on the right-hand side are, if you will track up to the graphic, the highway design manual criteria on the right-hand side are based upon that, as you can see there, a design speed of 40 to 40 miles per hour, because there are a large number of cars that are actually going that speed. Okay, so, but what we did do was we actually used design criteria that are less than would be required by the volume of traffic and the speed of traffic that is currently using the road. Based upon the last meeting, from what we heard from the public, we're using a design speed of 30 miles per hour, 35 miles per hour, which is less than would be required by the actual data that exists for volume and speed out on the road. we're going to have to get design exceptions for those as well, because they are less than the criteria that would be required based upon that. So in orange on there, you can see there's a couple of areas where we're using less than what would typically be required for a 40 mile per hour design speed in order to reduce the impacts. So those are the things that we've tried to do to try to reduce the impacts for the new road design that we've shown. And again, there is a significant safety issue there that has been demonstrated by accidents and the data presented by the Chief of Police at the previous meeting. Regardless of what people might think, Old Farms Road is not a country road any longer. You know, there's a fair amount of traffic that travels through the town on that roadway and going to various communities to the west and north of Avon. So it's not, the criteria is based upon very specific design requirements that are listed here, and we have tried to use design criteria that we feel are the lowest possible criteria that we can justify from a safety and an engineering safety point of view. Old Farms Road also, you know, it serves up potentially, you know, they said over 2,000 vehicles per day and probably more on some days. That's probably a low estimate. There's traffic being drawn from Simsbury and Farmington Medical Center. A lot of traffic is being drawn through the town. So it's not a local access road. It is a collector road, and it collects traffic and serves purposes to bring it through the town and distribute it to the various residential streets all along Old Farms Road and that are, you know, north and west of the project area. Also, I'd like to make a note that the Avon Plan of Development has endorsed complete streets. Complete streets is a concept, I guess, that all users should be addressed when doing throughout town, including bikes and pedestrians, commuters, as well as the local residents and local users of the road. The Avon Planning and Zoning also has endorsed safe and efficient roadway network, which we're trying to address here. And also, there's a 2023 Avon Bike and Pedestrian Master Plan, which also had public information meetings back in April, June, and September of last year. So they have endorsed and increased bike and pedestrian facilities. So we tried to, the project, that's why the bike lane is there and walkway, multi-use trail is there. We tried to address all of those things in this project. So it's not just about throwing a fix onto Old Farms Road. It's much more than that.
Sales pitch, and this is the opportunity for community. This happened the last meeting where you dominated. It's time to listen.
Yes, and I'm also, okay, and I'm also here to address questions, and that's what I was attempting to do.
This is something that I wrote. Joseph Gilberti, 45 Longview. I have 2 properties in Avon. In 1922, Theodate Pope Riddle bought her medieval architectural vision to Connecticut. She carefully chose this site for her all-boys school. It had to be within the forest. Theodate wanted it to be sacred and otherworldly. Over rivers, through woods, a winding road through dense forest. A school built by a woman who related to boys more than girls, an intuitive woman who did not care about raised eyebrows. She found Old Farms Road and purchased the 900 acres around it. There, this remarkable and historic woman of the Roaring '20s, a leader of craftsmen, built her enclave, her dream place, her boys' school. Now, 100 years later, custodians of her sacred place fell short of upholding her wishes. "Do not deface the forest and park," she stated in her deed of trust, and "fell no tree that is not dead." How many of us read her biographies? Land, development, modernization, the same forces that threatened all the areas that are now our priceless national parks. As the decades and centuries go by, these small remaining enclaves of natural, unmolested beauty will be taken from future generations to enjoy, one by the bulldozer. For Theodate, a catastrophe. In the Avon Special Town Council meeting of November 7th, 2022, now on YouTube, you can see citizen after citizen desperately pleading no. Penny Woodford put it best exactly 1 hour into the meeting in her moving plea at 1 hour in. But none in power truly listened to the heart of what was being said. State Statute 9-369B was circumvented. Money and blind forces win. The park is now being defaced. And you're laughing at me. You're laughing now, Dan. Okay, that's what you say. Which one? 9-2? Yeah. Well, the town council used the Democratic committee and posted you're not supposed to be influencing a vote. And you said in that posting, you said, let me speak. I'm up here to speak. You didn't do anything. You put an article that favored it. Okay. Anyone could research that. Yes. Or if you want, email me, BMW 1655@AOL.com. Just stand up for what happened. Let me finish what I wrote. The park is defaced now. The trees are felled and died. A straighter, flatter, wider, and even safer road will be built, is now being built, which somebody just died on, by the way. On the straightaway. Yeah, you guys scoff. What was magical would become banal. Cars can go faster on it, though. Safety never was the impetus. After all, the cars will all move by computer guidance soon, and nothing was ever done about speeding on this road. This is the last paragraph. I do not know exactly what a sacred place is. I do know that driving slowly on a narrow, winding country road to work makes me feel good. It makes me look forward to the beginning and end of the day. The trees seem to stay with us, don't go. Yes, straighter, wider roads will save us time. Tell me, what will you do with your extra minute?
My name is Amy Finch. I'm at 14 North Farms Road. I'm actually relatively neutral in all this. I just have a couple questions. So I grew up in Farmington. This road, the character of the road, it means a lot to me too, but I also understand progress. So looking at the image, the video that you shared, and I'm not a civil engineer, so I don't know what needs to be done for these things, but it kind of looked like the trees that were in there. Are you clearing the trees on the side and then planting new trees? They looked like young trees, and I think I'm just used to seeing the mature looking trees. So it's just a question I have.
It's a fault of the...
It's just the video software? Okay. So you're not clearing trees and then like replanting them, they're gonna stay?
We will clear up to certain limits.
I think it's intended the trees that are shown are the ones that are left.
The town does plan to do a landscaping plan and plant additional trees, but those are not yet shown. Because we have the landscape architect come in the design phase.
Okay. I'm just trying to get a sense of, like, obviously what's there now, it feels like it like hugs you as you come around, and it's a nice feeling, and I'm trying to just understand how far it's going to be cleared, and then these little baby trees in there. And it may very well be that that's a civil engineering thing that I don't understand, but I'm trying to get a feel for it versus what's on the video simulation.
It's really hard to envision it, but our goal is to try to minimize the tree cutting of the existing trees, and still make the road a safer road for everybody. But, and then areas like Bob's got a circle there, for example, sightline concerns, and the light green shows areas that were going to be cleared on alternate 1, and that's not going to happen on alternate 2. Just the green areas will be cleared, and anything outside of those green areas would remain treed. So a lot of the road trees will remain.
Okay.
And then areas that are cleared, we're going to be replanted.
Okay.
Where we can.
In that particular one, there's a large area there where it's the old road. So there's no trees there now, right? So there wouldn't be any trees proposed, so that'd be one area where planting would be done in order to soften, rather than leaving that just a big open, vast area where the old road was.
Yeah.
We would have a
Like
landscape
natural
architect
planting, not like everything in a
propose
perfect
more
row?
Right.
Right.
Okay.
But
It'd be designed by someone that knows landscape architecture.
Okay.
obviously, they're not gonna bring in 40-foot high mature trees, but,
Yeah.
you know.
No, I mean, I appreciate that you couldn't do that. I'm just trying to get a feel for it.
But on the video, the drive-through, so to speak, the trees that are shown are essentially existing trees. Obviously, we can go out and locate every existing tree. It's a
Forest.
You might want to ask how
reproduction
wide the
time.
road with the multi-use trail is.
Yeah.
That's what my question. That will give you a better idea of.
Yeah. I guess my other question to it, or I don't know, ask, I guess, is just with regard to the materials used. So like there's going to be some retaining walls and some fencing. I would personally advocate for something that looks much more natural. Like, I don't know, it kind of looked like stamped concrete. I mean, I appreciate you're trying to keep it red, the sort of look of Avon Old Farms, and for what it's worth, the split rail fencing to me looks a lot more like what's on the bike path. It's more natural than like the iron look, especially what's like I don't really understand why there's fencing on top of some of the
Yeah, the
retaining walls.
fencing's another safety issue, because if a retaining wall is above a certain height, we really don't want someone falling off that wall. And there could be people biking, walking, various things, and so we try to protect them from falling off the wall. But the type of fence is certainly open for suggestions, certainly.
Okay. And then my one last question, and this may be out of scope, and if so, just tell me, and that's fine. But just knowing that whatever is done here is probably going to be potentially allowing for more traffic to go through. I am wondering about the Burnham and Scoville intersection. I don't know if that's at all part of the scope, but my going into 5th grade daughter came tonight. She'd like to bike to school. We walk every day to school, and that intersection is awful. People whipping around the corner there. So I don't know if that's at all in the scope of this, but I like hearing some of the discussion.
Larry can comment on this, but it's not part of this. It's not part of this project, certainly.
Okay,
But
maybe I can
something-
reach out separately.
Yeah, I would absolutely send a
Okay.
note to the town, and it's something certainly to consider.
Okay.
I mean, the whole objective of all these projects is to try to make things safer
Yeah.
for people, the traveling public, as we call it, walking, riding, and vehicles.
Yeah.
The other note I'd like to make, as it came out at the first meeting, is it's not even just a safety issue for the traveling public, it's also a safety issue. Mr. Appel was here, he's here tonight somewhere. He just left, okay. Call Bruce back. Any event, there's issues with this road in terms of fire safety equipment, getting him down the road right now. They can't get down there with any degree of safety, so there's that issue as well. And as you know, there's limited crossings of the Farmers River. There's really only, in proximity, there's barely 3 crossings to get across to the other side, so that comes into the play as well. So
Thank you.
We'll go to another person for a question. This gentleman, oh, I'm sorry, right here.
No. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Gal Guksham. I am the leader of the Green Valley Volunteers of Avon. Now, what I've heard tonight is our people here fighting for the preservation and heritage of our Avon that made us the very town that we are. And while our statisticians and our engineers are arguing for the safety and vigilance of the people that are using Old Farms Road. Now, what I propose is instead of the linear way that the current engineering proposals are pushing through in our plan for Old Farms Road, or rather complete preservation of the road, I inquire for a complete remodeling of the plan that will protect the heritage of Old Farms Road, keeping it the way that we, the people of Avon, want it to be, but at the same time minimizing traffic deaths and any other accidents at the same time while keeping our heritage intact. Now, what I noticed is, in our crosswalk in the simulations that they were showing us, if you notice, they were all traditional zebra crossings which had no impact on the road. Now, what this means is that for pedestrian and bicycle crossings, there is exactly zero preference for the cars to be slowing down. Now, what should be done is that the crossings for the crossroads, if you could pull that up, please, is that there should be a raised median along the roads on every single intersection on the road. Now, this means roughly 2 to 3 inches, possibly of rather brick or any other material that would suit the heritage of Old Farms Road, leading to the lowering of the speed of traffic. And also, what I noticed is that there's also a lack of intersections into the entrances of Old Farms Road, along the, where, you go into the road onto Sub-Edge Farm, right? Do you know that section? Yes, yes, that's the area, exactly. There's no interchange for pedestrians to cross. Now, what should be done is instead of the linear way of the paths that are going through clear-cutting the entire forest, we should be doing what a similar community in Farmington has done. There is a new development that was done right next to Sub-Edge Farm in the forest. Now, if you see the bicycle roads there, it winds and goes in, flowing into the natural character of the landscape. What should be done is instead of the straightaways that are proposed here, rather we mitigate that and we leave the old mature trees on the road while mitigating the road around it. For example, that would mean lessening the width of the bicycle lane and allowing for that to curve around the tree instead of clear-cutting it. And what I also did not see addressed here tonight is that in terms of repopulating the area, they're talking about introducing new plants. Now, that's all and well, but obviously the carbon capture of old mature trees is far superior to that of any new one. And in fact, I was also not addressed that these would be native trees that would be planted. Now, instead of this, what should be done is that the road should be curved around these specific trees and added in with extra new wildflowers that are native to our area. Now, what this allows for us to do is to keep the safety of the road, increase it, and decrease traffic deaths at the same time while improving the road. This offers a happy median for the people of Avon to support. They are not going to support a complete linear path, but we should not be against an improvement of the road, for if that gets us anything, you know that they will push it further. We have to work for a solution. Now, I would like to see who is for this. Thank you.
Think over here. Jim.
Oh, do you want to? Norm, is that? Mike.
Thank you. I'm Tom Mitchell. My wife Barbara is with me. We live at 72 Oaken Gates, which is very close, quarter mile, half a mile from here, or from the proposed changes. We drive this 2-3 times a day, and I think the improvement is very important from a safety standpoint. What I would ask is, does this include the intersection, or could it, of Tolleson and Old Farms? That is a disaster in terms of sight line when you're coming to it. and very dangerous. So I don't know if it does or doesn't, but a three-way stop there would do two things. It would improve the safety of that particular intersection, and it would also slow the traffic that would be coming through. Suggestion. Thank you.
Question. The sight line, when you're coming up Tillotson to the stop sign,
If you're coming east, east on Old Farm, and you have to make a right on Tillotson.
Oh, that corner there?
Yeah,
it's scary. Yeah, it's scary as hell. So if there's anything that can be done with that as part of this, I would be happy. So would my wife.
Thank you.
I think Chip was next.
So, can I just address your concern about your sight line looking left? So you, just wanted to clarify, so, why didn't this go up on my screen?
So now there's more. It's open because of the trail.
Keegan. How come I'm not projected? I was just trying to pull up the video simulation of that intersection to address the gentleman's question. You had mentioned your concern about pulling out of Tillotson, turning left, correct?
I said that, he said he was concerned
She
taking
said
a right
down.
on
If
Tillotson.
Taking a right on Thompson from Old Farms.
Okay,
I've
because
had
you,
probably 5 close calls.
okay. So, as part of the improvements here, so you can't see left because right now the terrain is a hillside here. So part of this trail is actually going to improve your sight line looking left out of this intersection, because this is now going to be flat and the retaining wall is going to pull back your sight line. So if your vehicle's here, you used to only be able to see maybe only here, 100 feet. Now you're going to be able to see much further down looking west.
Right.
So it's actually going to help out in this scenario.
Okay, and if you could also put a stop sign where you're putting your red light.
So your comment is to put a stop bar on traffic coming west?
Three-way stop.
Three-way stop.
There's a lot of traffic for.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who is next?
This gentleman, over here first.
Hi, I'm Chip Walters. I'm at 56 Stony Corners Road. There shouldn't be any misunderstanding. Old Farms Road has been in discussion for 20 years or more. And it's been allowed to deteriorate to the point that it's at. Allowed to deteriorate. Maintenance has been deferred. Bridges are crumbled. You can see the erosion. The potholes go 18 inches, 24 inches into the road, and traffic's forced into the center line, making it more dangerous than it utterly needs to be. So yeah, work has to be done. There's a project to be done to improve this road. But this isn't the project. Good God. Just to give some perspective on this, Amy, to your question, 60 feet to 95 feet in width. It's currently 25 to 28. That's 4 times wider than it currently is. That doesn't look like a rural road, what they showed up there. It looks like a corporate office park road. Ornate fencing. Good God. The current project that's being built right now has, I don't know if you've been over to the trail lot over on Thompson Road, you'll see all the granite curbing, engineered granite curbing that's going in. That's rural. When was the last time you saw engineered granite curbing on a rural road? It's not rural. It's not anything like the character of the road, of what we love about Avon. Just isn't. The two options include 2,400 feet of retaining wall. That's almost a half a mile. And the option that this is leaning towards is 5,915 feet of retaining wall. That's 1.2 miles. And I asked Larry for data on this. The below grade numbers of the height of these walls. The below grade, 19 feet is at the high point, and 8.5 feet on average over 2,900 feet of retaining wall. And that's the stuff you're not going to see above grade. Above grade, you're going to see 12 feet maximum height and 7 feet average height. Think about that. It's going to be like riding a bobsled through there. It's crazy. And the biggest problem that I have with this whole thing is that we're not being offered an option that doesn't have all of that driven by putting a trail alongside of it. I'm not saying we shouldn't have a trail alongside the road. What I'm saying is we don't see any options that don't have a trail. So we don't know what we're giving up. You can't see what you're giving up. Let's minimize this thing and solve the safety of the road problem. We can create access. We can create access between the Farmington Canal Heritage Trail, the rail trail, and Fisher Meadow, not along this road. We can do it on Country Club, which is about to be rebuilt anyway. There's options. We're being offered vanilla or chocolate, chicken or fish. That's it. We don't have to settle for these kinds of choices. I want to know, what do we expect this project to cost? And what would this project cost if it didn't have the trail? Because the trail adds 18 feet of width to the entire project. The trail itself, 5 feet buffer, 10-foot trail, 3-foot boundary to the fences. That's 18 feet that wouldn't be necessary if there wasn't a trail. That's a third, almost a third of the width that these guys want to put in. The other thing is, there's 2-foot shoulders on this. That's basically saying, stay off the road, bicyclists. The law in Connecticut is give cyclists and pedestrians 3 feet. The initial, in January, view of this thing had 4-foot shoulders on the road. Now we're at 2 feet, which says, bicyclists, get off the road. It also says, hey, bicyclists, if you want to go fast, you're going to put pedestrians in danger because they're going to be on the trail. So I think we need another option. And my request, I'm going to put it on the table again because I asked, can we see an option without it? And I was told, no, you're not getting an option like that. We didn't ask the design consultants to do that. I'm going to put it on the table again. I think we deserve to see a view without a trail. And I think we deserve to be able to see what is the cost without a trail, what is the cost with a trail. And I know that there is grant funding involved if you put a trail in. But my God, if we're going to get that much grant funding and we're willing to just throw away this beautiful road for the grant funding, when it could be that grant funding doesn't even cover the cost of the trail, and we're not any better off. So I think we need to see that, and I think we deserve to see that. And I can tell you right now, I will not vote for this plan in favor of it, and I will push as hard as I can to get every single resident to vote against it, because I think it's atrocious what we're doing. Fix the road.
Hey, Bob, you noted that 18 feet to put the trail, is that the correct dimension?
Yes. Within a foot, yes.
If you eliminate the trail, it doesn't eliminate 18 feet.
No.
Because you still need sight lines, and you still need side road, snow shelves, and side road clearance.
We can quibble
So
over my numbers because I don't see the plans, but my point is the same. We deserve a view of a project without a trail.
I'm just addressing the question about the 18 feet.
So it would reduce it quite a bit. It may not be 18 feet.
14 at least.
Anyway, where are we going? Oh, sorry.
Hi, I'm Norm Sonheimer from 25 Nottingham Road. I do just a quick comment. The school is taking out an enormous number of trees in its property already. And frankly, this change, to be safe, it's going to look like a road through a suburban complex anyway. It may not be as wide, but it requires change, and change is something we have to get used to. But I was going to ask a question about budget. I assume both alternatives are equally safe within some margin of error. Is there a difference in cost to create them, and is there a difference in maintenance costs as we take on more responsibility to maintain this road in the future?
There's definitely a difference in cost. The retaining walls cost substantially more. We don't have a number per se tonight, but you can obviously tell if there's retaining walls, they cost money, and so it's going to be a significant difference in cost for that. In terms of the maintenance, I don't see a huge difference in the maintenance of the two alternatives. The walls are pretty robust. I don't see them, they typically don't require very much maintenance at all. So really,
clean out the catch basins and
yeah, there will be some there because they're in the lower impact alternative with the retaining walls. As Keegan just mentioned, there will be more catch basins and other low impact type of thing to make sure stormwater is cleansed, and those require some maintenance. But it's the overall scheme is not huge.
Work my way this way.
Yeah.
she was first.
Hi, I'm Bella Hill and I live at 100 Tamara Circle. I'm an urban planning student in college, and I would just like to, for a second, go back to what she has said earlier about how curvier roads are safer. A lot of people are now changing their straight roads to be more natural and curvier because it slows down traffic. And I was wondering why we haven't explored the option of making the curves wider rather than straighter, because if we make them curvier, you can still improve the eyesight while also maintaining the original curvature of the road. I'd also like to make a comment about the trail on the side. I think it's called the trailhead at the top of between Country Club and before you turn onto Avon Old Farms is a trail that runs through the woods. That's a biking and walking trail that allows access down to Fisher Meadows. I think if we added a crosswalk there from Country Club, that would allow access to that trail. And I think that would help eliminate the need for the trail on the side of the road that was proposed. I also would like to ask the town council or the engineering department why no maintenance has been made in the past 20 years to improve the road, and why, instead of fixing it over the past 20 years, we've just jumped to destroying the whole road. I just think there's a lot of things that we could do to adjust the road and make it look more natural rather than destroying the entire environment around it. Also, the wetland flags when you drive on the road are right against the road as it already is. So for high school field trips, we go right to that bridge that they're proposing on fixing, the first bridge around the curve. And we do environmental studies there, and we study all of the species that are in that water right there. And by extending the road, you're destroying all the species, all the species and the environment that's already there.
We can address that quickly first, but the impacts to wetlands are minimal for this project, actually. And it's been designed to do that. The only place the impacts occur are right at the two bridge crossings, which are, as I think everybody knows, the bridges are in bad shape. And I think we might all agree that the bridges need some work. So that's kind of a given in the project, and that's really where the wetland impacts are. The rest of it, we've avoided direct wetland impacts.
Okay.
In fact, some of the retaining walls are there for the purpose of
specifically for that.
And then with the retaining walls, so as you build them up, majority of what we're going to be driving by is 12 feet of walls, not the actual nature that's there. And I would like to see a plan that reduces the height of the walls as well, possibly.
Well, that's kind of Plan A, Alternative 1, and that requires to get the road in, it requires sloping, which requires more tree cutting. And yes, visually, you won't have that tunnel, the bobsled run look, but you're going to have more tree cutting, in which it can be replanted, but it requires more tree cutting, basically. So those are the two, that's what we did look at. And in terms of, and maybe Bob can address your first comment actually concerning the curvature and the sight lines and that type of thing. But the alignment of the road's not really changing that much, to be honest with you. It's more to do with the sight line improvements. The alignment's very close to what the existing alignment is.
What you mentioned about leaving the curvature what it is, and then opening up the inside of the curves to provide sightline is exactly what alternative 3 is meant to do. The problem is, as you probably know, the slopes go right up to the edge of Old Farms Road right now, and actually the curves are there because they go around those hills. So to create that sight line, you end up cutting the slopes way back, and that's why the retaining walls are there, in order to not cut the slopes back. As Steve mentioned, the first alternative
this photo right
did not have as many retaining walls. Most of the retaining walls in the first alternative were filled retaining walls when we were trying to avoid the wetland impacts. The second one, we added a lot of retaining walls to hold the fill. So as Bob can show you, there's only 1 or 2 areas really, I think, on the road where we're actually moving the road that much. Most of the time, we try to generally follow the existing curvature.
But that
those
just is the
design
road,
guidelines.
not the main walking path that's getting moved.
Yeah, well, that's something that we'll be talking about is the path issue. That seems to be a point of concern. And I'm guessing there's people, maybe not in the audience tonight, but that are much in favor of having a trail like that, a greenway type of trail.
But it sounds like there's already
The trailhead
I forgot that,
exists.
so we'll look at that, yeah. Yeah, we'll look at that.
So here's just an example of, I tried to zoom in, so can you see the red line? The red line represents the existing roadway.
Louder, please.
Oh, sorry. So this red line represents the existing roadway. In this particular scenario, where the slope comes right up to the edge of road, in order to get your sight line across here, it would have required us to cut back into this slope, and actually this wall probably would have been 15 to 20 foot high if we actually kept the edge of road where it is right now. So what we had to do is find a balance point of where we can cut a little, leave this open, fill on this side, and that's what creates, this is actually where probably one of the higher retaining walls are. So it's that fine balance of cutting on one side of a steep slope, filling on the other to mitigate, wetland impacts. Again, your wetlands are over here, but they aren't here. But again, it's that cut-fill balance of that cross-section that I showed in the earlier slides.
Let's keep moving along.
Yep.
Gentleman right there had his hand up since.
I'm Becky Saul of 65 Stony Corner Circle, and I have enjoyed walking through this area for 25 years now, so I'm really sad to see the amount of nature that has been utterly destroyed. It's heartbreaking. So if we get to this phase and we can do something that preserves the natural beauty and makes the roads safe, I mean, as many people have mentioned, the roads are in incredible disrepair. It's really hard to understand why they haven't been maintained. The bike path is right there. Anybody who wants to be enjoying nature is going to opt to be on a bike path, not going in an area where there's a retaining wall next to them and what looks like a major road now next to them. So, as has been brought up before, I'd really like to know how this would be without the trail. Would you need less retention walls? Would you be able to maintain more of the natural beauty? Because as it's been said, this trail, which was the only thing that made me open-minded, other than safety, of course, doesn't look like a benefit. It felt like bait in the beginning, but now it's bait that I don't want. So if you could address that, I'd appreciate it.
Well, I think it's something that we're going to look at for sure. We'll talk to the town. It's an integral part of the project right now. Whether that remains, we're going to have a discussion of that. Certainly.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Bob Lobley. I live on Old Farms Road, 291. I'm a second responder. Okay, I'm going to talk about three things. I want to talk about safety, I want to talk about the environment, and I want to talk about cost. All right? I live at 291. Most of you folks drive over Farms Road know who I am. I'm the one with the inflatables on my roof. That's me, right? Now, my neighbor and I are the first and second responders to a lot of the injury accidents that occur on that road, because they happen in front of my home and they happen in front of my neighbor's home. Mr. Burrell, is that how you pronounce your name? Yes, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, what is your name, the pleasure?
Oh, Jay, Costello.
Jay, I'm sorry. Yeah, you just mentioned that the cars were, what, 2,000 cars a day on that road? When you do this, you're going to double the traffic on that road. It will double. You know why? Because what's going to happen is, yeah, it's going to double. Don't say no. What's going to happen is the people that are now.
There's 3 crossings, okay?
Look at go to Avon at rush hour and look at what goes through there. That's going to become a cut through.
People are not going to suddenly shift from Route 44.
I'll bet you $1 right now it doubles. You and me. So anyway, what's going to happen is that those accidents that happen on that road, they're happening before all of this. They're happening at between Country Club and my house, where where they're going off the road at high speeds. How many of you folks are on Old Farms Road at 2 o'clock in the morning? Show of hands. Right? 1 o'clock? 3 o'clock? I'm there every day. All right? I was treated last week to a race. They mustered in front of my home and went racing down that road. That road's going to become a racetrack even more than it is now if you do this. You're going to have more on that. They're going to drive faster. It's going to be worse. Okay? So keep that in mind when you do this, what you're going to do. You're going to increase the traffic on that road. It's going to get bigger. It's going to be a cut through. More are going to be interested in it. More are going to drive it, and more kids. The last accident I saw 4 kids your age taken out on bodyboards, because they flipped over in front of my neighbors. They went down that road at 70, 75 miles an hour. Couldn't make the curve. Bang, roll over. And that was one of, I think, 3 accidents I saw last year there. And since I've lived there, once or twice a year this happens, okay? So when you're driving down that road, I mean, the other day, last week, some kid went by me at 100 miles an hour on that road into oncoming traffic. I don't know, we have a police officer here. You may know what goes on that road, and I hope that we do something about traffic control on that road and speed control on that road. Right now, I don't see a lot of it, and maybe there should be more. I drive it every day, okay? The other thing is, and now I'm going to talk about the environment. Chip, you brought up, 19-foot footers, right? Young lady here talking about the environment. Has anybody done an environmental impact study? Have we talked to the State Department of Environmental Protection or whoever that is? How much wildlife is really going to be impacted here? What's the real impact going to be? When we start digging like that, what are we going to dig out? How many animals are we going to displace? Look what we've done on phase 1. Actually, I call it phase 2 because phase 1 was actually the bridge. But phase 2, look what we cut out there. How many nests? How many birds' nests? How many deer? What lives in there? What lived in there? Right? What's going to live? What's in the wetlands? What species are in there that we don't know about? Right? Finally, just cost. Really, you guys owe us. What's it going to cost? All right. The town council does not really have a good track record with cost. You guys have been defeated twice resoundingly in the last month. All right. We want to know what this is going to cost. Give us an estimate. Is it 20 million, 30 million, 50 million? Where's the money going to come from? How much is going to come out of our pockets? We're seeing our taxes going up. You guys owe us an answer. So that's all I got to say. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Sam Levine. I reside at 98 Cotswold Way. We are currently a cut-through. I don't know where any of these studies have come from, but we are currently a cut-through. I can't even imagine the impact that this road change will have in our neighborhood. You haven't done a study, you don't even know how it's going to impact Burnham in that intersection. It's not even part and parcel of it. So you're taking a little bit out, you're creating this environment, and you haven't really thought about all the trickle-down effects that this is going to have in the neighborhoods, in the areas, in the nature, in the ecology, in the community. My husband drives down that road. He works in Farmington. He drives down that road twice a day, every day, and it is a pleasure for him to go down there and decompress and come home to his nagging wife. And it is part of his day. Now, the first part, the bridge, it is a hideous project. You have like dogwood trees and like specimen trees with these little mounds, and you took away every natural organic component that existed. And you created this memorial or whatever that no one's ever sat at. I mean, all the money that sat at the memorial that was spent, that not one person has ever stood on, I don't know where the thinking is. And the thing that freaks me out the most is, so we used to drive down Knobrook Road when it was the old lovely curve and winding curve, and you had trees and you had markers. So you had to go down the road and the trees were going by and you had a sense of how fast you were going. And then they took it out and they made it this straightaway, and you're going down a road that has a sign that says 25 or 30 miles an hour, I don't know what it is. And you think you're going 25, 30 miles an hour, and you look down, you're going 45, because there is nothing near close to you to give you some sensation of how fast you're going. And every time you take out a curve, and every time you take out something to visually slow you down, all it does is speed up the traffic. It makes it more accessible, and I just, this one word keeps coming through my head, and it's boondoggle. There's this money somewhere that's getting spent, and just because it's there doesn't mean you have to spend it. And it's about being, realistic in the community. And that first part's hideous. I can't even imagine what these walls and these fences and the just because you make it red cement doesn't make it Old Farms Road. And I really think this has been a horrible thing. And I also mourn for all those trees and all the animals that were displaced when you started the second part of the project. It was, I was so floored at the extent of what happened that I couldn't believe that this is what your option was. So I'd like you to really think hard and close about how this is going to affect my neighborhood, the poor people on Thompson Road, the people on Scoville Road, the people on the other part of Old Farms Road that it's going to continue on. I just don't think that you've thought this through and the amount of impact it's going to have in the community. So I'd like you to just take a little extra time.
And by the way, I think that memorial was a donation, I believe, for the bit of care. So it didn't cost the town anything.
Val Farrell, 88 Daventry. First, full disclosure, I've spent the last 30 years as an environmental planner. I have helped design and approve over 15 road projects. I've never seen one like this. I've duked it out with my cohorts engineers in the past. I go to public meetings, I listen, we go back to our office, usually behind very soundproof walls, and we duke it out. I'm always the one saying, we need variances, we need this, we need that. And the design engineers are like, safety, safety, straight, straight, fast, fast. And I'm like the other person saying, no, we have to do something else. So I'm stuck here because I understand we need to do something. And 25 years ago, I started monitoring this. I made recommendations. The road was in better shape then, and I still thought it was in tough shape. I wanted to see us improve the existing alignment and replace the bridges because we knew that's where the issues were. And many times the response was, well, we can't because if we improve, we have to do cut and fills. And you heard the gentleman tonight talk about that. And I'm thinking, well, geez, that bank has been there for 400 years. I think it might be there for another 400 years. Just cut it back. You know, do we need retaining walls? I often am one to say, I need more geotech. Show me that we need to do that. I want to see geotech. If it's stable, leave it. Just recreate what we have in nature, okay? So we've got some options here, and I think you folks have heard of some of these ideas. Some of them, you know, we're wearing our hearts on our sleeve. You got to roll with us. Me, I've got more technical questions, but I'm at odds here because for 25 years I've been monitoring this, and I keep saying we need to do something, and for 25 years we ignored it, and now we want to do this. It's like, you know, a knee-jerk reaction. So we should put our heads together and figure this out. And I think what people are astounded and appalled at is that to get the road, you have to construct. And if you've been on construction sites like I am, and I'm a little on the small side, and you know, I'm around this big equipment, and you know, we got backup alarms, whatever. I mean, you need big equipment to do these kinds of projects. And so you have a clear zone. You have your area of disturbance that allows them to maneuver through and build. That's part of the impacts. So that's, you know, you either take it or leave it there. There's not much you can do. But if the design is done well enough, and if you can artfully work through the existing context of a corridor, maybe you can make some improvements. Now, the two alternatives they put up there, when you just look at them, when you enumerate them, it's like, it's not so bad. But when you look at it in real time and in a cross-sectional standpoint, that's when it takes your breath away. And I think that's why after they started the roundabout and that phase one, people were like, oh my God, I had no idea. Because you couldn't visualize it, okay? So one of the things is, you know, we've got design objectives. Well, the design objectives are being driven by the Highway Design Manual. But the Highway Design Manual is being evoked because we're taking money. Some towns don't take money because they want to build what they want to build, okay? And one of the reasons why we have that tippy-top-notch bond rating is that we can get a good bond rating, but you actually have to use the bond rating to appreciate it. So maybe that's an alternative. We've got to think about how we're taking the money. And, you know, these guys, when they're given their scope and they say this is the funding stream, they know what they've got to deal with. Okay? So it's not as easy as saying, well, just change it. However, the trail. The reason why the trail is in place, yes, people say they want a trail. But also, the DOT now has formal complete street objectives. And if you take the money, or if the DOT is administering it, or funding it, or somehow touching it, you have to comply with complete streets. And normally that's a great idea. Here, I don't think so. I really don't. So one of the things that I think I would ask is apply for the variance. I would be happy to help, but maybe we should apply for this variance and say, maybe we want this money, but we don't want this trail. But if we want this trail, maybe you give us some money to make a connection elsewhere, but we don't want a trail that basically looks like a third lane to me. It just doesn't fit for me, okay? Yeah, and so we, you know, connectivity is good. I don't know if you did a routing study before you did this, but to me the connectivity is important, but the trail hugging the existing or the proposed alignment is not a great thing. So that's one thing. And then just quickly some other questions. Someone mentioned an impact statement. I'm assuming you have to comply with SEPA somehow. One of the things that's really been bugging me is SEPA, the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act. You take money, you have to comply with SEPA. So maybe when I'm done or when we're finished, you can explain what you did there. But Certainly, we know that the DOT has been criticized over the last 35 years for segmentation. You know, the folks in the Council of Environmental Quality, CEQ, that oversees the SEPA stuff, says, thou shalt not segment. But what the DOT does is always segments. And we are the poster child of segmentation because we did Waterville Road, and then we all went to sleep. And now we're doing phase 1, and now we're going to do phase 2, and technically under the Connecticut Environmental Policy Act, that is segmentation. What you're doing is cutting it up in little pieces so you get approvals, because you'd never get approvals if you put the whole darn thing together and went to get funding and approvals through SEPA. So I am not in favor of segmentation. We're kind of let the horse out of the barn. Not much we can do there, but this compels us to do a better job to recognize existing context and try to preserve as much of the alignment as we can. So the SEPA process I'd like you to address. I'm assuming you're doing archaeological investigations, as you know, between Waterville Road and, as Joe Gilberti mentioned, Avon Whole Farms, the incidence of archaeological potential is extremely high, including, I don't know if you knew it, but Theodate Pope had hand tools made on site and taught the men how to use those hand tools. That's why those buildings are never coming down, okay? And there's been anecdotal evidence of, are there tools through there, you know, what else is being found in that corridor? And as you know, the Native American and prehistoric artifacts near Waterville. So, you know, the incidence there is quite high. And then stormwater, I see the stormwater, we have a stormwater system in phase 1, so I'd like to address the phase 2 stormwater. I know there was an interest in LID, but I do want to make sure that we have the adequate stormwater, because right now storm flow really is what's making that road dangerous in the wintertime, and then also the pooling because of potholes and things. And then last but not least, I think it would be helpful to, you know, the simulation is fine, but I think if you would do just a simple Photoshop of the existing alignments and the proposed alignments in maybe 3 or 4 places to just show people how much you're cutting from your areas of disturbance, you know, generally. And then once it's revegetated and once it's a finished product and you've cleared and grubbed and all that done, I think that would help people. People still can't understand what this means in plan view. And I think because of the level of impact, the simulation in some places probably accentuated some things that perhaps aren't as obvious, but, you know, makes people gasp. So maybe a little bit of photorealism just in cross-section would be helpful. So I'm certainly willing to help. We've got to figure this out because the vote's not going to go great, I don't think. Since the first vote was so close, Chip and I are constantly fielding questions, and it's building and building and building. So what we want to do is the right thing and hope to have something that the town all will stand behind, but achieve your safety objectives. Okay, thank you.
How you doing? Steve Mitchell, 345 Waterville Road, Avon. So I'm not really super passionate one way or the other. I live in a house that was Theodate Pope's mistake, so I've been told. That's another story. But at any rate, so I'm a cyclist. True confession, I'm a car dealer and a cyclist. I was on the board of the East Coast Greenway for 7 years. I've been to meetings, probably 200 meetings like this in states from Maine to Florida, mostly in Connecticut. Probably most notable and most, shall we say, vicious was the Merritt Parkway study. And if you've ever been aware of the Merritt Parkway study, 2014, 2015, that got right
downright contentious down in Greenwich, Westport, and Fairfield, trying to get the East Coast Greenway aligned with the Merritt Parkway. That didn't go well, was a bad plan, and I'm not going to get into that tonight. But as an Avon resident, I definitely related to the woman next to the girl here that wants to ride her bike with her daughter to school. I looked into something. I was at the Canton, I call these meetings food fights, right? They're food fights. So I was at the Canton food fight last Thursday over about the condo projects over in Canton. And I made a comment, not public because I'm not a resident of Canton, but I'm a business owner there. And I didn't realize how much traffic, because parents now are driving their kids to school. I call them Uber parents. I didn't realize till I looked it up that right now, nationally speaking, it's 63% of all students are being driven to school by their parents. If you go to any of the elementary schools around here, it's like this, you can't get within a quarter mile of the schools because parents, too many people are driving their kids to school. It's ridiculous. So I don't know who started that. But the other comment that I would like to make, having to do with public safety for the police, I had a nice chit-chat with Chief Arciero last week, because I really commend Canton and what Canton has done with their speed signs. And now in Connecticut, you can have cameras and you can have speed signs. So, and believe me, on Waterville Road, I've seen it. Old Farms Road, I've seen it. There's too many people driving too fast, and I don't think the enforcement, and I realize you can't chase people anymore. The laws have changed, and my daughter's a teacher, and being a teacher, being a policeman these days is tough. The rules have changed, I get it. But now you can use speed cameras in Connecticut, am I correct?
A lot of restrictions around it, but yes, they are allowed.
Okay, so I mean, I think that's one common discussion, not having to do with this here tonight, but it does potentially, because you are going, the truth is you are going to have more traffic on Old Farms when you create this, and that's just a fact. And the one thing, one of the town meetings I was at was in Cary, North Carolina, a town most of you have not heard of. It's a suburban town to Durham, North Carolina. There are 39 named trails in Cary, North Carolina. I have not been to a community ever that has regretted putting in a greenway next to a road or connecting neighborhoods to schools. I think we're just beginning, we're just getting it. Really what we're doing is being reactive to what the DOTs in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, the regard, speaking as a car guy, the regard for pedestrian and bicycle safety back then was zero. You know, anybody in this room that's of a similar age to I am, born in the 50s, Route 44 was a great place to ride a bike on in the 60s. It was a 2-lane road with a 6-foot shoulder. I see some heads going, yeah, it was fine to ride a bike on back then. And so what did the DOT do when they wanted to create a 4-lane road? They just added another lane. They really didn't widen the road at all. So bicyclists and pedestrians are screwed, dangerous. So that's all the comments I have, but I think that the plan, for the most part, I think is interesting. I'm all about public safety and making things safer, but it's got to look in keeping with the town. It's got to be nice. I think a lot of the comments that were made tonight need to be taken into consideration, and it needs to look nice, not like a highway. That's all.
Hi, my name is Lynn Kenny. I live at 44 Country Club, so I'm right near the bike path, right before you get to Old Farms Road, right on basically a blind corner, and I have 2 young daughters that have to get on and off buses in my driveway. So to Mr. Mitchell's point, part of the reason I don't want them getting on a bus half the time is it's literally dangerous. Cars have passed buses in front of my house with me loading kids on them, lights flashing, completely ignored. I won't even let my kids who are 13 and 15 ride a bike on that road, okay? It's an abysmal shape, and that's country club, okay? There's no, I mean, the bike path is right there, but they can't ride up to the library, they can't ride up to the store, they can't ride up, you know, because it's crazy fast and it's curvy. If that road was straighter, there's no way. There's no way. So and we use the bike path a lot, right? We walk along it, and what I started to notice was trees were coming down, but nowhere near where this road is going in. So I started to ask friends who live nearby, have you noticed all the trees that are coming down? They're not anywhere near where they're putting this road in. Yeah, I've noticed it, and I know that Old Farms has like 350 acres, and then Fisher Meadows is another 500 some, and I bought that house hoping that there would be nothing there. When I started to ask about why all these trees are coming down, I started to talk to friends that work at Old Farms or at the school. They've been told there are houses going in. It makes more sense if you think about it, why they need this wide road, because there are going to be houses on some of this property. How much you want to bet Old Farms has sold some of that property and there's going to be development there? And nobody cares anymore about stop signs, and nobody cares. I mean, they can't even fix Country Club. And believe me, the traffic on Country Club is insane. It's gotten so much worse. No one said anything to us about helping fix that road before we're going to get all the traffic up our road, as opposed, you know, because they're building this, they're messing with this road. All the traffic's coming up Country Club. The bus is going to Country Club. We have all the ambulances and fire trucks coming down there. We had a bus hit the berm, hit the rock at the bottom of my driveway, and shatter the entire glass door of the bus because it was going so fast up the street. And so buses on that road go fast. So, and if you want to know why people are driving their kids to school, try and have 2 kids go through puberty while COVID's happening, stuck in their house, okay? The depression rate in this town is insane. So we have a lot of kids who are sleeping in. I'm not going to complain. If I can get them to go to school, I'm going to get them in a car and take them to school. So yeah, and I don't get to leave my house unless I drive my kid to school because I work from home now. But I have this feeling, I've had this feeling since I've been walking on that path and seeing trees come down over here, over there, nowhere near where this road is going and nowhere near phase 1, that there are houses coming. And that was confirmed by people that work for the school, that there are houses going to be built there. And we're not hearing a word about it, and something tells me that these developers here know about it and we don't. So I'm here to say, I want to know what the town knows about that, because I think that's why you guys are all hell-bent to have this wide road with all this fancy stuff, because you're going to have all these expensive houses going in, you know, and because this town is so hell-bent on making every road a highway. I agree, 44 used to be a pleasure. I've lived in Avon. I bought that house 18 years ago, but before that I lived in the apartments. I've lived in Farmington, so I'm well familiar with this whole area, and the only roads that people go fast on are Tillotson Road, which is straight, right? Waterville Road, which is straight. I bought that house in Country Club, like, well, it's curvy, maybe people won't go fast. People go so fast on that road, they sail off the edge of it when there's ice there. We've had cars right off of it, across from us, a dozen times. So what I want to know is, why are there trees coming down on other pieces of land? Why do you need to have it like that? Why can't you fix roads we already have to support the traffic that we're now burdened with because of this? And you cannot for the life of me tell me that this is not going to increase traffic. There is no freaking way that this is not going to increase traffic. My idea about this town was that it wanted less development. The minute I bought a house here, I was like, oh no, they want development. They want to build all these brick stores that no one's going to put places in. We have all these old commercial places that are empty time after time. You know, and I get that you guys need to build a road that's safe. We have a road that you could make safer and have that be enough for everybody, you know, and just preserve some of the nature around there. I'm like everybody else. I have bears going through my yard. I see wolves. There's egrets on the pond right there on Old Farms Road. The nature there needs to be preserved. I guarantee if you guys straighten this thing, you're going to stick a bunch of invasive plants all along the side and walk away, and you're never going to, half the people that are building this road probably don't even live around here, don't care. So I'd like to see a safer road, but I'd also like to see what the actual ultimate result of why you're doing this. I think you're doing it because there's going to be more development there than we even know about at this point.
Good evening, Bill Stokesbury, 15 Cadbury Turn. I'd like to step back a bit. I think one of the core issues with this project is public safety. And I believe we need to make sure we can get police cars, ambulances, and especially fire trucks through this zone, over the bridge to the east side, east of Farmington River. And to quantify that, I'll ask the town a question. What percentage of our grand list, how many houses are there on the east side that deserve to have equal police and fire protection? Thank you.
My name is Patty Olson, and I live at 145 Winding Lane. And I just said, the woman who spoke about the houses being built, I think those are part of the land swap that we did, right? Didn't we give land back to Avon Old Farms?
Just the road.
Just the road? Because a friend of mine at Avon Old Farms said that they needed housing.
I mean, it might be them.
And the property.
They haven't said anything about that. From what we were told, it's clear, it's forestry.
They're forestry, they have
Yeah.
a forestry program.
Yeah,
in theory.
yeah. So anyway, I was just, this road, to say that it's really not safe, I think it's disingenuous, because I drive it every day, both ways. And to say that people go 40 miles an hour on it, I've never seen anybody speed around the curves. They might go 40 miles an hour when it's sort of straight, and slow down when they get to a curve, slow down when they get to the bridge, and drive carefully. I've also, in 20 years, I've never actually seen an accident on the road, although I'm sure there has been, but I've never seen one. To do this, to this beautiful, beautiful, iconic corridor, this road, it's a tragedy and it's permanent. The damage that's done is permanent. It will never be the same. It will never be a canopy of trees. The loss of the trees and the ecology, the animals. I mean, I don't know. Do you guys live around here that you would even miss it? I mean, the idea that this will be gone is devastating to me. And then I think, in 10 years, you're going to have people here and they're going to be like, oh, we don't remember what that was like. I guess it's okay now, But I agree with Val that there just needs to be things that are not necessarily so funding dependent, to put these things in the project that make it kind of hideous, and the walkway is really part of the problem. I mean, I think it's just to have 60 feet of open road where there's now, I don't know, how much is it, 20? 25, with a tree canopy that's beautiful and curving and relaxing to drive. I love driving that road. I love it. And I think that this is a shame. And I hope that you can address the issues, the things that people spoke about here tonight that are really important to them. Because I kind of feel like this whole thing is being shoved down our throats. That it is, nobody listens. It's just kind of like, it's being shoved down our throat. It's kind of like, well, we're going to have this meeting, but it's not really going to change much because we're just going to bamboozle our way right through it. And I don't know how, there were people I've spoke to about the North-South project, and they're just kind of like, wow, had no idea it was going to be like that. I feel really bamboozled by our government in town. That it is just, it's not really open and transparent. I mean, you like to say that you want that, but I don't really believe it is. And I just hope that if there's, if you're hell-bent on doing it, that you do it in a way that preserves the nature of that area. It's beautiful. And I said at the last meeting, and the other thing too, from the last meeting, I thought that they said that one of the things that they wanted to do was that the state, they want to encourage traffic on that road. They want to encourage truck traffic on that road at the last meeting that we had, that it was to help alleviate traffic issues like on 44, right? I mean, and it's just, that's like alarming to me, you know, and there will be more traffic, there'll be more trucks, if you know, to make that way, because they don't know where they're going. They're going to put in their GPS, it's going to say, oh, go down Old Farms Road, you know. But it is, I think it's a disgrace that for that 2-minute drive, you're all willing to give that up. And that's it.
Anyone else wishing to speak?
Christine Hill, 100 Tamara Circle. I know it's really been said, I think, by everyone here, but I think, you know, echoing the comments, I actually do feel passionate. I know the gentleman here had said he doesn't feel passionate about this, but I actually grew up in Plainville, and one of the reasons I wanted to move to Avon, it sounds silly, but it was because of this road. Like, I remember growing up and my grandparents taking us out to lunch and driving down this windy road in Avon. And so when I met my husband at the time and he grew up in Avon, that was one of the reasons that I agreed to buy a home here, was because of nature and because of the, you know, how special that road is. And so I think, again, we're not trying to be difficult. What we're trying to do is we want to preserve the quality of that road. And as was pointed out, it's a very short stretch. And I could see if this was the only way to get into Avon, but there are other ways into Avon. You can drive up Brickyard, you can drive up Waterville Road and come up 44. So there's plenty of other ways, because we've all done it, right? I mean, there's other ways to get in, and to that point, we don't want trucks coming through there. We don't want to have that. And as you know, my daughter had pointed out, there is an opportunity for a trail to be going through that trailhead, because there's already stone that's been put down there. It can be paved so that bicycles can go, and they can come down from the trail up and come down Country Club and hit the trail there. So there's no reason to put another trail in from this juncture in order for people to be able to access it. So that's all we're trying to do, is to, you know, we want to preserve the quality of the road as much as possible. And from what we saw of the video, it's just, it's completely eliminating the character of the road. And it's just making it very corporate, I guess, or, you know, it's just very, like we were saying, it's just, you're going to feel like you're driving down a highway instead of driving down the special road. So I just, you know, we just ask you to take that into consideration as you're continuing with the planning. Thank you.
Becky Saul from 65 Stony Corner Circle. I share some of the feelings that the young woman with the B cap talked about, really questioning the motives behind what's happening and really wanting some transparency about what the goals are and who's motivating this, who's driving it. And if you go back to 2016, when they put forth recommendations for developing, Avon Old Farms had a lot of motivation to get the land, to develop it or sell it. And it's just not a new idea. It's been part of what's going on. And I think when we had the vote for the referendum, the two sides, my perception of it was people, you know, who were for it seemed to have some identification with the school. And people who were not for it had a strong identification with loving their neighborhood and wanting to not see it changed in a way that they didn't feel like they belonged here anymore or wanted to belong here anymore. So I would just really appreciate some straightforward answers to those perceptions. What will AOF get out of this? And how much is that driving what's happening? So.
I apologize in advance, I'm not a good public speaker, but my name is Valerie Nejad. I live at 11 Cotswold Way. We moved to this town about 3 years ago from many places. I've lived all over. And I've watched as areas that I've lived in get overdeveloped. They continue to take away the character for modernization. And we moved here specifically because we thought, oh my gosh, how is this a preserved area where all these trees exist? It's beautiful, it's not overdeveloped. And my initial reaction seeing this project was shock that you would destroy something in your town, my town now, that is so beautiful and so quaint and attracts people to the area, makes people appreciate the area. Because I've been in too many places where they continually just pull and push and take, and then it strips it of any character that existed prior to that. So that's my feeling. I live by this road, so I'm very invested in what happens to it because we plan on living here for the next 40 to 50 years, hopefully. I do take concern with what you had mentioned earlier, sir, that this isn't a rural road anymore. But what people are saying is they want this to maintain the rural character of the road. They want it to be a rural road. They don't want it to be a pass-through for people. And I think keeping that in consideration while you're planning is important because having that mindset that this isn't a rural road and to get over it isn't productive in creating something that the people of Avon want. And I do have a question concerning the speed limit that was presented in the beginning, where it said that most people are going 41 miles an hour. And I took issue with the fact that people are speeding, so let's create a road that makes it easier for them to speed. My understanding of road design, and I'm not an engineer, so this is just in doing research, is that if people are coming to you and saying we have a speeding problem, then you create ways to reduce speed, not create more speed. And so I take issue with the fact that you're saying they're speeding, so let's design for speed. And I guess that's really all I want to say on this project, but the town has heard from me multiple times through a lot of questionings that I send, so. But I just wanted to say publicly that I feel like destroying the character of this region, or this area, is going to be detrimental in the long run for a lot of reasons. And that's
Val Farrow, 88 Daventry. Just for clarification, I think it might help. So there is, I think, some confusion on the road classification. I know 20-some years ago, under the cloak of darkness, someone from town council went to CROG and said, gee, we want more money to fix our roads. What do we do? And CROG said, well, you should classify Avon Old Farms as an urban arterial. And so that happened, even though nowadays you have a public hearing and everybody knows it. So I thought the classification was, well, maybe not arterial, an urban collector. I think that's the correct. But the plan of conservation development, possibly the zoning maps, one place I see town collector, and then another place I see rural collector. And we all know us that do this. That means different things to different people. And the highway design manuals and your need to meet certain design criteria are different depending on this classification. So one of the things I think we might want to do is revisit the classification of that road. Because what happened is overnight, literally, They blessed it and said, you are now no longer a rural road, but you're an urban collector, and that immediately rendered that road insufficient. It didn't meet proper design criteria, which is what you guys were charged to do, to make it work. So we've got this yin and yang again. And the other thing that I have brought up repeatedly is I would like to see that assigned, and this is a state thing, I know, it's very complicated, but I would like to see a no truck route on Avon Old Farms. Because then people are starting to understand, okay, we are accommodating vehicles, we're accommodating some commuters, but forget the trucks. And so I guess the question here is clarify the classification and explore a no truck route designation and see if that might get us somewhere.
To comment on that really quickly, the chief addressed that a little bit at the last meeting about the no trucks and then the ability to enforce that. It's impossible, essentially, as I understand it. The classification is something to look into. I would note that on numerous occasions, I have personally tried to get roads reclassified for and doing exactly what you're talking about. It takes almost an act of God to get it done, but
it's ready.
Yeah.
It's very hard. It's easy to drop, but if you want to go back up for
Yeah,
some reason,
yeah,
that doesn't mean that we don't.
But having said that, we're not many of the criteria that would normally be required, as Bob pointed out, we're not meeting those criteria. There's quite a few. In fact, all the important ones, we're not meeting them. We're going to be asking for waivers to that.
But the urban collector designation, what that does is, in the world of, maps and what have you, it does encourage trucks and other people to use it.
Right.
So the current classification is a local collector, so it's not urban. It's still a local collector, and the collector designation is based on the ADTs. What Jay was mentioning earlier was that it's not a just a local road.
Yes.
It's now a collector based on the ABC, based on the ADTs.
But I will tell you, I have the backup for it, town-generated material that indicates the date of when CROG redesignated it, and they announced it was going to be a collector. So I don't know.
Yeah, I think it'd be difficult, again, based on the traffic. And quite honestly, I think we talked about 2,000 vehicles per day. We have knowledge that that's probably extremely low. It's quite a bit higher than that, probably.
The road functions as a collector.
Yeah.
It collects from the residential areas around and distributes the traffic elsewhere. There's very few houses that are actually on the road itself.
There's none in our section of
The
it.
road functions, okay, but the design criteria that we used was a low volume rural collector. It's the lowest possible classification that we could, from an engineering and safety standpoint, recommend. So the classification that we're using, DOT would use a much bigger one. So
I understand, but what I'm saying is that the existing designation of that road should be clarified for the general public.
Yeah, we'll do that. We'll make sure we have it.
Yeah.
Because they were boasting, and I'm telling you, 25 years ago, they were boasting about the fact that the classification of that road has changed, and therefore we were now eligible for new funding.
Right, we got, understand. Okay, next. Have we tired everybody out a little bit? Chip?
I have one really brief one, non-controversial.
Yeah, she wanted to come back up and
I was curious in the Carmen Robinette from 18 Byron Road Drive. So looking at all the retaining walls that are being proposed for these plans, where are the wildlife corridors and how would a bear or a deer navigate crossing that road?
Yeah, they're not continuous walls. There's gaps in them all along there. They're not, it's not.
And then and what about the fencing? Is the fencing not continuous?
No,
Okay.
no, it's not continuous. And again, the wall alternative is the alternative that was looked at in order to shrink the footprint down as much as possible. We're not recommending that by any means. We're just saying, in order to minimize the footprint, which is kind of what the public talked about first, this is what you have to do, kind of thing. So, but we'll look at that though, for sure.
Chip Walters, 56 Stony Corners Road again. A couple of thoughts. One, I just want to point out that I am a member of Bike Walk Avon. I am an avid cyclist. I'm a big proponent for trails, just not this one. So I just want to be clear on that. I am a big proponent of connecting Fisher Meadows to the existing rail trail. And I've offered a couple of different options. I've talked to Dan about and others to be able to do that without doing it on this road. I guess a couple additional thoughts. One more on the cyclist side. There's never been a cyclist vehicle, pedestrian vehicle accident on this section of Old Farms Road, ever. That doesn't mean it's safe. I just want to point that out because people talk about fatalities on this road and that. The first fatality in 100 years happened 2 months ago. And it happened coming off of the new part over the bridge on the Farmington River. And without having any other information, we know that the man was driving excessive speeds. But the wide, flat, straight makes you wonder, did that contribute? Who knows? But I think it's a fair question. To that point on safety, when we were here in January, the question was asked by a police officer in another town who was attending the meeting about what do we think the traffic and safety implications are going to be on the connecting roads, the surrounding roads, Burnham, Scoville, Thompson, etc. And the answer that was given by the consultant here was, we don't know, that's not our scope. So I did ask the question of Larry the other day, what do we think? Is there going to be more volume? And the answer was no, that they're only going to get volume if there's more development. And I just think that that opinion, without independent analysis, I can't rely on that. I would want independent analysis. I think we deserve a study of that from an independent party. Who doesn't have an interest in whether or not this design is accepted or any next phase of the project, et cetera. They're just here to do a safety analysis. Because I believe, and I think many people here believe, that we are going to see more traffic, or the composition of the traffic is going to be different. It is going to be able to handle larger vehicles. It is going to create opportunities where Waze says, you know what, 44 is backed up. Go down Scoville. Go down Thompson, through 2 school zones, across 2 bike trail crossings. That's a big deal, and it's meaningful for the safety of people who want to use those facilities, getting kids to school on bikes and that. That's what we want to encourage. This isn't going to encourage that. It's going to make it more difficult, particularly since the sidewalks on that on Scoville are a disaster, right? It's also a reality that our policing policy in town allows discretion to officers to decide whether to ticket or not ticket when a pedestrian gets hit by a car. That's unacceptable. So we need to be looking at things systematically and even changing things like that. So that's my only other point.
I'd like to comment on the Waze thing. I think I've been down some pretty strange roads with Waze, and I'm not sure it considers the geometry of the road sometimes when it's taking you on a shortcut or avoiding traffic. So I'm not convinced that by slightly changing the geometry of this road.
What's the expected time?
Yeah.
Expected time to get to where you.
I still can't see this road being faster than going 44.
44 is down this road.
Well, yeah, it does that now. It does that now.
They're going to think twice about it now because they can't get that vehicle down that
Well,
road.
they don't even know that. I can cite numerous cases where trucks have gone down roads where I've been down roads that a 4-wheel drive vehicle
Let's
should
do
have
the
been.
analysis.
Well, I would comment on that as well, that we discussed this with a professional traffic engineer, an independent engineer, no relation to us, no relation to the town, and his contention was that there'd be no difference in traffic. If we need to have him do a study, we can talk to Larry about that, but that was his reaction. And that's what he does for a living.
Thanks.
Debbie Elcock, 195 Burnham Road. I agree with almost everything that's been said here tonight, so I don't need to reiterate anything, but I just want to be assured by the town and the consultants that the points that have been raised will be duly considered, because I've heard a lot of off-the-cuff responses to a lot of the questions and comments, And I hope that's not viewed as sufficient. So when somebody's asking for a study or for more research or something like that, I hope that the town and the consultants will follow through with those requests, because this was billed as an input session. Thank you.
When we conclude the meeting, that's definitely one of our conclusions, that we've written everything. I can't say we've written everything down, but we have 3 people taking notes. This meeting's recorded, and your comments are definitely going to be considered. I can tell you that for sure. That's our job to do that. So I can guarantee we will look at them all. We may not have positive response for you all. We're not going to make everybody happy, but I can tell you we're going to consider all the comments. That's all I can say.
Will there be a follow-up meeting, or like what's the next step?
We don't know yet whether there's going to be a follow-up meeting. Again, we don't even have an alternative picked out, and that really goes back to the SEPA thing and the environmental permits. We're not there yet. We have to have an alternative that we're looking at to say what are the environmental impacts and what are the concerns to it. But those will have to be considered certainly for any alternative. We don't have that yet. There's no consensus whatsoever. So another follow-up meeting, we're not sure about that yet.
We should plan on one.
Pardon me?
I think we should plan on another one.
I think it's very, very helpful. We're happy to go to meetings. We love talking to you folks, honestly. You may not believe it, but we do.
Will there be a vote before like anything is put into place?
The way this typically works is that when a project gets developed to the point where there are costs and a design, then the town will decide whether to put it to a vote, a town-wide vote. It's not a meeting like this, it's a town-wide vote, either a referendum, however you pass, such as a budget, vote type of thing.
So there will be a vote?
Oh, absolutely. Well, if it moves ahead, yes. If the project doesn't move ahead, there won't be a vote.
And what decides that project goes ahead?
That'll be a town call.
Town council?
Ultimately, yes.
Thank you. Does that mean the project could be dropped without a vote?
It could be, I suppose.
You know, the shame of it is that you haven't really addressed the major issues that you've been trying to address with the project, right? Which is the bridges, and so I just don't understand why you started phase 1 when in reality you had issues with curvature and
Yeah, I can't comment on phase 1. We weren't involved in that whatsoever. We were retained to design phase 2. And to make that road as safe as possible, considering all the potential impacts and the concerns of the public. That's our call to duty. Spot fixing little things here and there. I've driven that road for 55 years. I don't think it's changed a whole lot in that time period. I don't think it's any safer. I don't think it's any rougher. I don't think it hasn't changed, quite honestly.
Potholes are worse.
They come and go. I mean, I'm not, it depends on the year, I suppose, and what we've had. The other issue with potholes has to do with sometimes with the new products we're using on the roads and the salts, and they cause more potholes than we used to get. So that's a maintenance issue, certainly. But in any event.
Just from a process standpoint, because you said that we would sort of go to, there'd be a design, and it would get costed, and then decision. I guess my question is, are we going to actually compare design costs in that so that we can actually see? Because what I feel is there's a big trade-off here about losing an incredibly valuable scenic roadway that defines the town, which is hard to put costs on, right?
Right.
And there's getting there's getting a modernized or improved road and maybe a path along it and whatever. But if you can't look at it and say, this one that preserves what you want is going to cost, I don't know, I'm going to use this example, cost $10 in the net after grants and everything else, costs $10. And this one in the net costs $9 because we got a whole bunch of grant money on it. I think residents would want to be able to understand, I'm giving up this beautiful thing for $1 million or $1. Whatever the number is, right? Do I value it more than $1? And if we only have one thing to look at, we can't make that judgment. We can't make that assessment. And that's what I feel is truly, that's what I don't know if a path and all the straightening is the right thing or the wrong thing. I don't know what the right answer is. But I don't have things to compare in order to say, but I do know in my head that I value this road tremendously, and I value the future for kids in this town tremendously, and what they have there. And I just don't have any, I just have one point to look at and go, is that what I want? I don't know, because I can't see what my other options are. There's chocolate and vanilla on the board today, and there's a million other flavors out there. And I just think that I think we need options.
I agree with you. So I've been talking to Grant about this. The plan is to come up with cost comparisons without the grant, essentially.
And to share those with residents.
Like if we decide not to go the grant route.
And share those with residents?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think we should.
Yeah, I think so
it's
too.
hugely informative for me, and Commissioner Castle as well, who's in councilman's here. I think that, we do need to have some better idea of options and costs.
Have we considered getting that portion of the road designated as a scenic road under Connecticut General Statute 13B-31C?
I'm for it.
I'm for it.
I don't know anything.
I just wrote that down myself. As
You
a
need
possibility.
every property owner, I tried that about 25
But couldn't you do just that stretch? Because it doesn't have to be the entire road. It said it could be a portion of a road.
It still needs the property owners,
Still needs the property owner.
that's Avon Old Farm School, entirely.
Should they sign on?
No. Good idea, but.
Can we buy the road? Can we just buy that portion?
What's the disadvantage of that, being a designated whatever?
The only real disadvantage is you can't do anything to it. Virtually no improvements whatsoever. Even fixing a bridge might be problematic, type of thing. Potentially really limits you in what you can do or not do on a project.
How about you fix the bridges and then get the designation?
There you go.
Let's
just the bridge and leave the rest of it alone.
They don't have to sign off.
Well, that was said at the last meeting as well, so take that
I
comment.
think that should be one of the proposals. Fix the two bridges, leave the rest of it alone, put up speed bumps, put up stop signs at every intersection, and control it so that it isn't a speedway.
Right.
Put all that money to beautify the area by, instead of ripping those streets out. Rip out the sick, twisted ones, leave them healthy. I counted the rings of the streets, there were thousands.
Okay, let's keep our comments so everybody can hear them, please.
Has that more conservative approach been considered, where we take what we have and we repair it and maybe widen the road a little bit and ask that it's patrolled every now and then, that maybe there's some tickets that get given on that road. Not that I want to get a ticket, but I honestly, I'm sure there's a time when I have deserved a ticket. Please, I don't want a ticket, but
We find when people look for that, guess who get the tickets? It's the local residents get the tickets first usually. But
then they'll go slower.
They will.
They'll go slower. I mean,
The option of just doing the little widening, that is not part of our scope certainly. It's something that can be looked at. The thing to be aware of, as soon as a town touches a road in terms of making it any kind of improvements, they really need to, for liability reasons as well as safety and other reasons, they really need to fix the road and bring it up to a standard. Yeah, there's town standards as well. I mean, this doesn't mean any town standards whatsoever.
Can we look at that and see what it would, because I think we'd all love the road maintained. Nobody understands why it looks the way it does. Can we just start there?
Yeah.
And see what we get?
We'll discuss
Please do.
with our boss.
I have a couple of things. As town council, if this is a representative sample of our town, it might not be a quorum. Can you look at us in the eye and say right now that this town supports what you're looking to do here? Yes or no?
It's kind of complicated because there's a big grant portion to this, and we haven't let
Yeah.
chips fall.
I'm just saying,
You need to know.
I'm asking you to talk about it. Sure.
Question.
Sure. Yeah.
So there's a grant portion to this. We need to know what the comparison is in cost, right? I mean, we don't really know the alternative. We all came in, this project has been under discussion and planned for 30 years, 40 years.
My question is,
So is this, I don't know if this is the representative sample.
Yeah, I don't know if it is either, because we've heard a lot of people who bike walk and people who want connectivity. There's the people on Country Club who don't want to have a path. There's the Avon, the golf club that doesn't want sidewalk there. So I don't know that this room is representative of that. However, I do feel 100% that I have heard everything everybody has said, and I think there have been some very, very good points made, and we do need to.
You
know what the project would look like without the grant.
Absolutely. It's a rhetorical question, but right now, what we just saw today, I was asking, just going around the room, I'm not asking the people of the room, I'm asking the town council, maybe you need to sharpen your pencils here and give us some other alternatives to exactly to your point. Exactly, but do we support this and obviously this is nowhere near a quorum, right? This is just some concerned citizens, there's what, 50 of us in here? But overwhelmingly, there's not a lot of support for this right now. Maybe for something else, that might be it. And one of the things I want to call your attention to as well, I would recommend that everybody in this room read a book called The Power Broker. It's a biography about a guy named Robert Moses who built the road infrastructure in New York City. And he talks about how power is wielded, blah, blah, blah. But one of the things he talks about is road construction there. And what this guy did, if you guys have ever driven on the Sawmill, the Hutch, the Bronx River, the Cross Island, the Belt Parkway, the LIE, the Cross Bronx, all those, he built all of that. And one of the lessons and one of the things that happened there is when those parkways were built, and this is, I forgot your name, those roads were immediately inundated. These are parkways. So when those people could get on those roads and go faster on those roads, they became overwhelmed. So keep that in mind. Read that book. It's a fantastic book to begin with, but it talks about what happens when we do these sorts of projects that make things, in theory, better and faster. More and more people drive, and the GPS says go this way now. So once again, I'll stand by. And as a matter of fact, I'll meet you at Luke's tomorrow at 8 in the morning. And we'll bet you $1 each, and we'll put it up on the bulletin board, and we'll revisit it 5 years from now and see what happens. Deal?
Which loops?
There aren't. There's only one.
Hi, Ruth Lewis, 32 Foxcroft Run. Could you just please clarify, if we didn't pass this, if the council doesn't pass it, within zoning, because we have someone from the environmental department for the state, I assume. If we just would it be possible to just fix the two bridges? Can we still widen the road? So, because I understand that's a concern, that it's not widened, or is without putting all these other things, or can you not do that? You can't simply do the bridges. I'm just asking to clarify.
We don't have an answer to that. We've certainly done, our main function in life is bridge design, quite honestly. And we've done a lot of bridges without doing a lot of road work associated with them. This is a different project. It was envisioned as a one whole project. That's something that we would have to look into, to just do the bridges.
So you don't know if the requirements within what it's zoned as would not allow you to just do the bridges?
That is not, the zoning has nothing to do with it.
Oh, okay, all right.
Yeah, even that.
Classification, sorry.
Oh,
the classification is what I meant.
Oh, yeah, no, that doesn't prohibit us from doing something like that.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to ask one more. I'm sorry. I want to ask one more. There's one landowner involved in this.
There's one landowner involved, one abutter. Am I wrong? There's one abutter to this project, and that's Old Farm School.
Well, two. Town is in butter, too.
Oh, the town is too. Yeah, okay. So the other abutter. That's weird. At any rate,
wait a minute.
There was a lot of negotiation that went on with Old Farm School for the last phase, for them to get the road to be realigned, for them to reclaim land on the other side of the road that allows them to expand the campus, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We didn't hear about that stuff because it was done behind closed doors. It's their land. They can do that. But I'm going to ask the question now because we didn't really think to ask it during the process as much. Some people did. We found out later that they funded the roundabout design. That was their desire to have the roundabout. It wasn't necessarily that of residents. But my question is, and I'm going to ask it, you can say I can't talk about that if you want, but is there discussion with the Old Farm School about the extent to which this project would be allowed based on the scope that you've put up there? Are there negotiations going on with that abutter in order to do this project? Oh, here he comes. Sorry to put you on the spot, Brandon, but I do think it's a fair question.
No, it's fine. It's a fair question. Just one more time, are there, negotiations going on with the school about
This project.
this project?
Yes.
So certainly. I mean, we have an ongoing conversation with the school, as you would expect. They're the primary landowner. So we have conversations with them. We have looked at these preliminary designs with them. Yes, certainly.
But this is a corporation. So then, according to Google, the president is just the CEO in West Hartford who ran a company in England that went under. If this is correct, I mean, if you type in who's the president, it's a corporation run by a group. It's really handy, ultimately, and she couldn't live forever, so she passed it on through a trust, and it's run now as a corporation. So the talk. That's why we, as citizens, the town residents, really need to ask you guys to come up front. So when we do go to vote, we know what the real deal is, what the invisible hands are.
So since you jumped in there, let me just...
Vote in that way.
I don't know what you mean by the invisible hand, and I don't know, I mean, legally, the Avon Old Farm School is a corporation, I suppose, if you look at their tax filings, but I think your characterization is incorrect. They have a board of directors. The board of directors has the fiduciary responsibility for overseeing the activities and the function of the school, and under that board of directors, they have executives. They have a headmaster, they have a chief financial officer. Those officers are appointed to act under the auspices of the board of directors that I assume is acting pursuant to some sort of charter, will, etc. Again, I don't know what those documents are. So
Well,
that's...
let me conclude by saying you guys are on the front line, town council, the manager, and the engineer. And I'm telling you, if I worked for the town, it would be very hard. I don't know if I would have to resign or I'd have to take sides. All I'm saying is, I give you guys, first of all, I give you guys credit, the town council members that did show up, give them credit for showing up and taking the hits. And if I were in their place, it would be a really tough. But if they have it in their power to say no to something, that is a strength too. And if I was an engineer thinking, wow, I got to spend, I would love to take on a project. My God, in my life, I would love to, but I would be terribly conflicted. So I don't, I could empathize with you guys, and I give you credit because you're doing your jobs. But we showed up. You say you're talking to other people who want this in ways, but we're the ones that showed up here. So there's a passion, and that should be considered, and the history of what the founder of this really wanted. That is ultimately what should be considered.
Well, I think that the way that the school would answer that is that Theodate Pope Riddle is long gone. And whatever her will and wishes are or were, the board of directors has the authority to act on those wishes. So that's how her will has to be expressed.
Trust over after 100 years.
And it's
no longer has legal tenacity.
It has not.
I'm not a lawyer, I can't speak to that. All I can say is that it's the board of directors that makes those decisions on behalf of that organization. So Chip, yes, to answer your question, you bet. We have discussions with the school. The school is a major stakeholder within this community. They are the only abutter along Old Farms Road. And yes, we have to talk with them.
Are they funding any of the work so far?
Are they funding any of the work so far with respect to the design on this portion of the project?
Any of this portion of any of
No,
this phase of the project?
they are not. No.
Will it be disclosed to us if they do?
It would be. I don't know why they would, but yes, it would be disclosed. Well, I'm not sure what that means, they got what they want, but I mean, as we would, I don't know what that means. I mean, as we would with any organization that is abutting a project of this size, how could we not talk with them and have a good relationship? It would be illogical for us not to, and I don't know how they're getting what they want by us doing that. To back up, I mean, so the fact is, in the level set with all of this is, and nobody's been along for this ride longer than Val Farrow has. You've been at it longer than I have, and I've been at it for 15 years now. You know, this is a plan that has been identified in the town's plans of conservation and development for right or wrong, going back to 1968. And you'll remember that up until, the 2016 Plan of Conservation and Development, there was that whole crazy loop that went down around Beaver Pond and then reconnected further west on Thompson Road. And if I recall correctly, at one point, there was going to be an open space corridor that connected, and it swung around to the south. And again, if people can identify and think about Beaver Pond, that was really far to the south. And then it came back and it connected further on. That was going to be an open space greenway. There was talk of a trail on and off again. So basically, once Larry and I got on board with this project in the early 2000s, we recognized that was a non-starter. That was never going to happen. It was too expensive, and the permitting, the regulatory requirements were impossible. So that's when we switched gears. The council at the time looked at it and said, hey, listen, what we want to do is we want to try to do something that is in the existing alignment on the east-west section. So that's what we downshifted into. And later on, of course, the funding became available for the path, which, you know, if folks want to look at an option without the path, we can do that. But going back in time, and these things are always a function of time, that was something that people felt strongly about. The 3 or 4 councils that I worked on with it felt strongly about it, because while there is some kind of a connection off Country Club across Old Farms, that's an access way. That's a gravel pathway, and they wanted to see a multimodal trail that people could take from Thompson to bike, walk, skateboard, whatever they wanted to do to get to Fisher Meadows. So that's where it came from. That's what the concept was. That's why we applied for the funding through the LOTSIP program. It wasn't that the trail was driving our desire for the LOTSIP grant. It was they worked together because we had already been thinking about the trail, and the trail is highly rated when you go to apply for LOTSIP funding through CROG. So that's just kind of how we got here.
Don't confuse a trail with a trail that adds another lane next to a new road, because I think that's the condition. And back then, 20 years ago, when I talked to people about a routing study or whatever, they wanted some connectivity, which, you know, back then, remember, we didn't have any trails. We didn't even have rails to trails. So I think things have evolved, and I think people's perceptions
Do you have a mic for her?
Change.
Do you have a second mic?
Well, I'll just finish. 20 years ago, we did have rails to trails. You know, I can just tell you the chronology of how we got here. It's very logical for how we got here. This is the normal cadence for these types of projects. And, you know, we're at the point, we are not at final design. That's why we don't have numbers for you. We are still at the point where, we are putting our finger in the wind and we're saying, folks, this is what we've come up with to date. We've got these two options. We've got a light option and we've got a slightly lighter option. And we're here to get your feedback and we'll react to that. So I hope that helps.
I was just going to finish my point on this, which is I think that it's great that we're doing these sessions because the 20 years of work that went into all of this was always done in small group, town council kind of meetings, things like that, where an agenda got posted, a handful of people showed up. We didn't do these.
Yeah.
And so this is like a huge improvement because now you're getting a bigger swath of opinion or perspectives. And I applaud it. I think that's a really, really great thing. And I think it's great that we're doing that. I think it's great that we did that for the rec plan. I think it's great that we did it for the bike pedestrian plan. I think it's great that we're doing it for this.
Well, what I would say is that while I appreciate that, and I'm sure that those that are involved with this now appreciate that, the suggestion that any of this was ever done in a manner that was nefarious or behind closed doors is absolutely incorrect. Because we can go back, and Val will remember this, she was at those meetings. In fact, you were at the meeting when we talked about the independent utility for the feasibility study for Old Farms Road back in 2017. So these discussions have always been public. I'm glad more people are tuning in and paying attention now, and of course, that has the added benefit of hopefully contributing to a better project that the community is proud of.
But
So.
the snafu, I think, the snafu really is the lack of divulging the traffic analysis that was asked of you for phase one, when people were stunned at a roundabout that was not in your original scoping, and it wasn't in a lot of the original graphics, and then we show up at a meeting and all of a sudden there's a roundabout, and then I find out through free information that there was discussions between Fuss, you, and Avon Old Farms about they really wanting the roundabout. And when I looked at the traffic study and I did my analysis, I surmised that there was no difference in traffic between the roundabout and the original design. And I think that kind of fueled people's distrust of that. I think that, frankly, that's...
So number one, I'm not an engineer. I can't comment on that. I would say that number two, you don't have to file an FOI request. We're happy to talk about it. And I think that's one thing you've found between Larry and I and anybody you deal with in staff. I mean, we're always very happy to be candid.
We just wanted to all
Oh, now I'm in charge. All right. I think we've heard about everything. Yes? So we'll take this into consideration and move onward.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming. Appreciate your time.